Hey there, welcome to the Drift Podcast. I'm your host, Travis.
And your other host, Ben.
And today we're talking about drift sustainability and just mostly how to keep affording to go drifting over your lifetime of drifting.
Over how long you want to keep doing it and what you want to achieve with it, I guess, at the end of it.
And not running yourself into a crazy amount of debt. So how not to stuff that up, basically, like so many people have. But first of all, we'll just start off with news, I think. In Australia, we have Drift Masters has just been announced. Which,
that looks really cool. One of our professional drivers, Rob White, is pretty much organising it with a few of his guys, I guess. And was it 20 pro cars and 40 amateurs or something like that?
Yeah, but they're two separate competitions.
So, and they'll be pitted against each other, and the winner gets to drive Pro Setup 350.
Winner from the amateur will get to go to drive the Pro Car 350Z at World Time Attack Challenge, which is massive. Like, that's a world stage event. We get drivers like Chris Forsberg, Daigo Saito, drivers from Europe. I can't name any off the top of my head right now, but we get massive drivers coming over for this competition. It's totally a world stage competition, and you'll get a completely paid for car and team and entry to drift against these guys. You know, that is a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yeah, definitely.
It's going to be like it's like a 600 horsepower VQ in this 350Z.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
But the biggest thing is for an amateur. So
if you're looking to be, getting into pro driving, this is a good way to try and get into it.
Definitely, especially for someone in Australia where we've just lost ADGP and we need something like this, and to get more people interested in the competition side, but still, not ruling out the amateur guys. You know, it's not just let's give it to some pro driver. They're trying to get the amateur guys interested in it in the future too.
Yeah, which would be, especially because a lot of amateur drivers are like you and me, being, we've got full-time jobs and we drift for fun. And if they want to take it further, the opportunity is sort of getting further and further away because
totally, you know,
the amount of money it takes to just get into it, and then, to be able to supply the tires and the pit crew to be able to support you in a pro drift competition is just ridiculous.
Yeah, like, so these people just... you and me, we could never dream of driving a 350Z at World Time Attack Challenge and competing against Daigo and Chris Forsberg. You know, that is just a dream that's not even achievable with our kind of money that we have. So it's just something so awesome that I'm going to totally miss out on because I'm in Korea. So thanks. But anyway, that's all good. Whatever.
Oh well.
But anyway, good luck to the guys that are going in that. I'm super
keen to see some action from it. It'll be good. I reckon there'll be a lot of good
professional amateur drivers. Yeah. Like top guys,
people have been that drifting for a while, and they've been kind of like hiding and only coming out every so often.
Yeah, you might see like a short video go up and you're like, wow, that dude can drive, and then you never hear of him again. I think there's going to be a lot of people like that. So.
Yeah, I'm real keen to see it.
Yeah. And I'm hoping that we might even be able to get Rob White on, but I got to have a chat to him and see how we go. What else? FD Long Beach happened. Ferrari caught fire. The internet knows about that. And that actually
that kind of was just the whole...
broke the internet with that as well. Like,
the whole event was just Ferrari on fire.
Yeah, it's going to be what that event's going to be remembered for sure.
Yeah.
But did you watch the replay of that at all?
Of it catching fire?
Yeah. He was so close to not being able to get out of his car along the wall.
That was a lot of people were actually talking about that. The safety crews were just not anywhere near where they were supposed to be.
Well, see, the problem was the safety crew came up from the other end, from the finish line. They weren't based at the start line, so they had to wait for the other driver to finish, and so that the track wasn't hot anymore, so that they could even come to him. So they had to wait the 10 seconds or so for him to even go before they could even go out there,
True.
So that was just very poor organisation, and that's something they should know. That's just stupid.
Yeah,
stupidity.
definitely. thankfully he wasn't knocked unconscious and he was able to start getting out himself. So
that's a very possible thing to happen as well, you know?
Yeah, like, very easily.
You know, imagine if, like, the worst case scenario with that was he was knocked unconscious, car turned into a fireball, and you have your first death at Formula Drift. Like,
very close.
That was potential, you know, and I hope they really sort that out in the future.
Yeah, hopefully for the next event they kind of plan that out a bit better because, you know, especially cars like that are very prone to you know, fuel explosions just because they're under so much stress.
Yeah, so, totally. You know, it just takes one lapse of judgment when you're building a fresh car like that. And, you know, nearly half those cars in FD this year were fresh. So, but that goes for anyone, you know. Run your fuel lines. Think of the worst case scenario when you're rerouting your fuel lines, and for God's sake, put fire extinguishers in your car. Like, that is a big one. I've had it save one of my cars by having a fire extinguisher in there. Replace them yearly. They're $30, like, at the most.
Yeah.
Get one every year, you know.
Definitely.
And if you use it, it goes in the bin and you buy another one the next day. Like, hands down, no questions.
Yeah, $30 is very cheap insurance on a fire.
It's very cheap insurance considering you don't have insurance when you're racing at the racetrack. So, next one, you can talk about Super D.
Super D happened. That was rad.
Yeah.
Animal Style were absolutely killing it again. Nakamura, Miki Takagi, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but another dude that drives a 180 in Japan. He was out there, and all of them were driving really, really well. The Auto Factory Realize guys were there as well. They're
they got a cool
super
YouTube channel.
fun to watch on YouTube. So if you don't watch them, you should go and check them out.
Yep.
So I'm like super keen on their episode to come out. I think it was delayed for a few days because of something.
They went on the GT Pro channel, whatever it is, and did the competition where they drift against the Formula Drift guy who wears the tuxedo. I can't remember what his name is. And they get judged by Dai Yoshihara. And so the Formula Drift guy has to drive his car and try and do a better run than what he can do in his car that he's used to driving. So,
oh geez, that would have been interesting.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think it's like GT Pro channel or something like it's something like that. But yeah, if you search the Auto Factory Realize GT Pro or something like that, you'll see it come up. Yeah,
no, definitely.
Super cool. Super D sounded pretty rad.
Yeah, someone even managed to overshoot the main corner and go through the back wall, so there was definitely no short of excitement there.
Yeah.
Definitely love to go to Grange or Super D at least anyway one time. So.
Yeah. Even Super D in Japan would be cool.
Yeah, at least that one's a bit closer.
Yeah, but, cheap flights too.
You know, would be cool to see some friends in America, so.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's news done. I can't really think of too much else major that's gone on in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Do you think of anything in the future that's coming up? I'm trying to think. I don't even think there's much even going on in Australia.
We had DCA
today.
Archerfield competition down at Archerfield today.
Yeah.
I haven't heard any results yet or anything like that, but I had a few friends driving in that.
Yeah,
so.
okay. Yeah, it'll be interesting. Might talk about that next time. Okay, on to the main topic of drift sustainability. Now, I got this article, I read this probably like almost 3 years ago now, and it was posted to Drift Life Australia. I think it's driftlifeaustralia.com, and it's totally worth reading. If you search drift sustainability and drift life, this article will come up on Google. And we're just doing like a dissection of that, as well as like adding to it like it's 3 years old now, so we want to add to it what's relevant now.
Yeah.
So basically, starting off with like that drifting is expensive is one of the biggest things that it's saying in this article. And, you know, average drift car would cost, I would say, what, 10,000 Australian dollars, 8,000 American.
Yeah, especially like after you get the basics. You know, you'd never buy a car that's perfect off the bat. So
no, definitely not. Especially if you're going to be drifting it. You potentially really want a car that has already got at least a minor dent or a few dents in it, just to not care about as much.
Yeah, like for example, you look at my original 34. You know, that had some quarter panel damage on it, and that's why I got it much cheaper than it should have been, but it had the setup that I wanted. You know, all I really needed was a bucket seat and I was pretty much good to go.
Yeah, for sure.
So like, you know, you look at it, every car you get, you're going to have to tweak a little bit to make, you know, comfortable for you, but yeah, as a whole, you want to find something that's a little rough around the edges to start with. You want to try and maybe save a bit of money on that, because if you're drifting, stuff's going to happen to it.
Yeah, totally. I think most people understand that as well, but don't expect that it's not going to cost you a lot of money as well. You have to walk into it, even if you've been drifting for a couple of years, you have to be thinking about what it's going to be like in the future. That whatever car that you're currently building, let's say for instance, you've currently got an S13, as most people in their first few years of drifting do. And generally, you don't start out with a harder to build car. No. You'll start out with something a lot more simple. And that's usually an S13 in nearly all countries. So say you've got SR20 DET, you've welded the diff or shimmed the diff, and you've got coilovers and maybe some lock spacers. Potentially that's all that you need. Now,
that's probably more than enough than you need to start with.
That is well and truly enough. That if you can't drift with that, you're never going to get better no matter how many other parts you put on the car. It all comes down to seat time. So you just really you don't want to spend a lot more money than that as you're learning. But say you've started out with that, and then you see a lot of stuff on the internet about these crazy builds on Speedhunters and your friends, sitting in the garage and building their cars, and you think, wow, that's awesome. I'd love to do that. And I love watching someone go around a corner in fourth gear, just destroying a pair of tires every lap. You're like, that's cool. And don't get me wrong, that is cool, but I don't have the money to support that, and probably neither do you. So
yeah, I feel like 95% of us don't have the bank to do that.
No. And or at least not in the future. So if you're building that S13 now, say you're like, okay, it's winter time, I'm going to pull it off the road because there's no drift events because it's snowing. You're going to pull the motor, you're going to do an LS or a J or a big turbo RB, and it's going to cost you, I would say, $20,000 you're going to drop on this car. And you're like, I can afford to put $20,000 into this car if I budget that out over the whole of winter, And then you get all the little things that cost a lot of money in between then. And then all of a sudden you're spending $30,000 and you don't have this thing ready to go. And I'm just throwing numbers, but you don't have this thing ready to go before the end of winter. And then you're building it into the time when you can actually be driving and all your other friends are out driving. You're missing track time and you're not getting any better working on your car in the garage. You're not getting any better at drifting. Doesn't matter how much Assetto Corsa you're playing in the meantime, you are not getting any better. So, and that's the trouble. Then, say you spend 6 months building that car and it's cost you, let's even just say it's cost you $20,000 by the end of it, and it's all back together and running. You've now got a 600 horsepower motor and you're like, yeah, this is cool. I love this. And you go out there, you do your first track day, and it pops the motor. What do? You give up. You're done. That is your drift history. Done. $20,000 down the toilet. Probably $20,000 spewed out all over the track, pissing everyone else off because you couldn't build a motor or whatever, So you don't want to be that guy, because you'll never get back into drifting again. Whereas if you just stuck with your S13 that was running that SR and it was happily drifting, you weren't baking fourth around the corner, and going through a pair of tires every single lap. You weren't being that person, but you were being the person that was driving every single event that came up, and you were getting better, because that could be you, but you blew your motor on the first event after building it. So that's just one example that this article goes into, and I think it's a really valid and hits home with a fair few people. Or I feel
it's it's definitely brings it home in Australia, to be honest, because we have,
but even America as well.
Well, definitely in America, but being able to say first-hand experience in Australia, you look at a lot of the people that go drifting at Friday nights or, you know, even morning sesh now, because it's becoming a lot more popular, you know, every single car, because Haltex and Lynx are so easily available here and our secondhand market's so big, you can go buy yourself a big aftermarket turbo, go get a Haltech from someone that's parted out their car that's done what we just discussed, dropped 20 grand, blew the motor and was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
You know, pick up a cheap Haltech, and then the next person's doing the similar thing, you know, and they've put it, you know, 10, 15 grand into the S13, bolted this big turbo to the SR, gone drifting, and they've never done anything else to support it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they've blew their SR up again. And
or you know, you've achieved that big power, you've achieved being able to do a fourth gear drift, but you now can't do basic stuff because your car is so undrivable at like a lower speed, you know, or anything like that. It's just, it can make it totally undrivable as well.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's not jumping into big power too early. I mean, like, I drove probably the most munted 4H ever. Yep. It's like the earliest gen you can get. It's basically a 4AC bottom end with a 4H head.
Yeah.
And I drove that for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Before I found a $200 4H.
Which would be like, what, 70 horsepower at the wheels at the most?
It would have been 70 when I got it, but after I blew the rings off of it, it was probably more like 60.
Yeah, or less, you know.
You know, and that thing loved it, you know, and that was so much fun. You learn so much more driving a basic car.
Well, you don't learn how to drive in a garage.
No, and that's it. Like, I drove that thing to work and back, and like, I think the only ever issue I've had with that motor was the distributor, and that's just a known Toyota thing, which comes down to, you know, like researching what you have. Yeah. And, you know, finding the parts to replace it so you can sustain your drifting, you know?
Yeah.
And that's it, you know, like, that thing cost me every drift event bar the entry fee, a tank of petrol, which was $60, a pair of tires, which was $100.
Yeah.
And, you know, wow, I drifted the whole day.
Yeah, and that's a major thing. Like, you got to remember, with more power, you get a higher cost of like maintenance on the engine, as well as, if you want more power, that means better gearbox, better diff, better axles, better brakes, better harness, better seat, full cage. You can't just do one thing. You can't change one thing without changing the other.
Yeah, it's about supporting the, you know, the mods that you do to your car.
Yeah.
So it's like, you can't just go...
You can't just jump to that next level.
No.
Like, there is a massive gap between that basic level and trying to build a crazy car level. Like, you can't just jump, you know?
No, definitely not. And that's like another thing, like, as of personal experience, you know, I've gone to track days, and I've had, let's just call, like, Drifter XY over there, and he's been given, you know, the proper gap in front, but he doesn't know how to drive. He's just spent $30,000 on a pre-built car that makes, you know, 800 horsepower and bags up fifth gear.
Yeah.
And I've come, you know, you come flying into the first corner in your little NA buzz box, and you've thrown it, and all of a sudden you're looking at the back of this, you know, 800 horsepower monster that's not going anywhere. You like stomp it, spin out, and old mate then just jumps on the clutch and burns up the next corner.
I probably think I'll jump on the clutch. He just puts his foot through.
Put his foot down.
Yeah,
you know, and like,
and he's doing like a, say he's entering at 60k an hour, waiting for mid corner, then he'll accelerate through it.
Yeah, you know? Where you're coming flying in at like 130, 140, and you're just like, where am I going to go now?
Yeah,
you know, and like, don't get me wrong, high-powered cars are cool and everything, but, you know, you got to be able to drive them to their potential. You got to be at the driving level to use the full potential of that high-powered car. Yeah, exactly. And, you know, like, that's a lot of what I think's been missed. And, like, what if that guy breaks something in that, you know? Has he got the money to keep repairing such
Has he got the money to even pay for a pair of tires a lap?
You know, and is it... Yeah, you know, like, how many tires does he go through?
And, you know, if you're going to have like a $30,000 drift car, let's say, with 600 horsepower, are you going to tow that on just an open bed trailer behind your crappy Falcon? No, you're not. You're going to have a fully spec'd up tow car and a massive enclosed trailer, because that's what you see everyone else driving that has that kind of money. Yeah. So, But by all means, if you have the money to go and just spend as much as you can, I'm not telling you not to.
Oh, in no way I'm saying don't do it. I'm just saying, like, you know.
But there's a lot better things to spend your money on, you know. But we want people to stay in drifting. We don't want you to quit after a year and a half, 2 years because you overbuilt your car and you can't afford to even take it to an event, you know, let alone finish it. So,
well, yeah, that's another thing. Like, I was talking with one of my friends today. He's getting a new car, and a lot of the parts are shared with a different chassis, but those parts are very sought after because, you know, it's a more higher spec'd out car. Like, for example, they're just for the adjustable camber arms and stuff, you're looking at about $800 just for the pair.
And that's the other thing, is if you want to move to a chassis that's not your average chassis, let's say, for instance, you want to build a Volvo wagon. For whatever reason, you want to build a Volvo wagon, let's say, and you want to put a JZ in it. Why would you want to do that when, like, you're just starting out, or even a couple of years in? You know, the time that it takes to do that and the money that it takes, how many events could you do? You know, with building that car, you could do 2 to 3 times over to Ebisu and drift for a week each time for the price of building a car like that with 600 horsepower. Like, where's the logic in that? You know, you can drift at Ebisu from 8 a.m. till 4:30 p.m. I think it's like 2/3 of the year. If because you can't count winter, you can't drive there properly in winter.
Yeah.
So you have to take that into consideration as well. You know, how much money are you getting for your value? You know, like, how many events are you even going to get out of that car even by the time you have built it? Let's say you do build a $20,000 drift car and you can't afford to do it and whatever. What is your goals with that, and how many events do you plan on doing before that car is either outclassed or broken, you know? And
well, yeah, that's the other thing is, you know, you build a high output motor, you know, there's a lot more strain going on, and they require a lot more maintenance, not just, you know, the parts that go with it, but yeah, you know, building motors is a scary time.
Yeah, and anything can go wrong. After you, it doesn't matter.
Keep the factory magic sealed in. Don't open it. Don't overboost it.
That's the biggest one, you know. So when you start buying cars, or even in the future, if you want to get the maximum drive time, you should be buying the car that already has. You should be buying the car for the motor, not the car, and you should be working on the chassis that comes with that motor. So, say you're buying a Chaser, leave the J in it. Say you're buying a Supra, leave the J in it. Say you're buying a Skyline, leave the RB in it. Say you're buying a Sylvia, leave the SR in it. Simple as that. Keep it simple. Factory looms are the easiest thing to work on compared to doing a custom swap with some hacked up loom that your mate got, you know, or that your mate who says he's an auto, like, goes in and puts a whole heap of Scotch locks in, you know, like, or does a crimp wire that's like 100 millimeters round of crimps, you know, to hold this motor together, and you expect that to be reliable? No way.
No, definitely not. So,
you know, and there's so much work that goes into building a car. Like, these race car shops, there's not just one person building this car. You have a person that builds the motor, a person that does the wiring loom, a person that does the suspension. You might even have multiple people that set up the suspension.
Yeah.
It's not just one person.
No,
and you're trying to be that one person who's a driver and all of those builders on one thing, you know? It's crazy to think people will try and do that. Well, I just want to read some other examples that it does say in this article. So I'll start off with the first one. I'm not going to read it word for word. So you've started off and your mate is rebuilding his drift machine with all this crazy aero and amazing motor, and it destroys tires, and it's usually ends up very short-lived into drifting and big loan, and that person just really disowns way more than anyone else does. That's pretty much comes down to that first one that I just said. that I started off with. And that's pretty much that kind of person. You can read the next one, just roughly at least.
Yeah, you know, the next dude kind of, you know, talks about person that comes in that has like, you know, a build that's taken way too long to do, and, you know, plays a few events, goes nuts, and, you know, probably can steer half all right, you know?
He's had a couple of years, 3-4 years practice, you know, maybe before building this crazy car.
You know, and like, the car's probably heaps good, but, you know, he, for example, hits a wall, motor blows up, as we were talking about before. You know, can he afford to put any more money than he has already into it?
Yeah.
And most of the time, a lot of people don't.
No.
You know, because, like, we all have other things to do in our lives, you know, like...
And that's usually when, like, I mean, even we're at the age, you know, we're over 25. Everyone around us, I don't know about you, if it is the same for you, but people just tell you to grow up. You know, like, I get it all the time, you know, like, when are you going to grow up? And it's like, well, hopefully never, but okay, you know.
Yeah, you know, like, I get that a fair bit as well. Yeah. It's like, you know, I'd rather try and enjoy my life when I'm able-bodied, not when I'm older. When I'm older, totally. I can be responsible.
Totally, but at the same time, we want to be the guys that can afford to keep drifting even when we are older.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like, we don't want it to become unaffordable for us. So the next one is the classic, that Sylvia shell's really cheap, it's only $500. Drifting's so cheap, I'm gonna build it with my mates and over some beers on a Sunday. That'll be so easy. I'll find all the parts on drift sales on Facebook and gonna save heaps of money. There'll be no problems with anything. I'll do everything on this and it'll be built to my specs. It should only cost me like $1,500. Like, that's all. That'll be enough.
Heard that one before.
Yeah. And next, it's engine explodes at the first event or 100 reliability issues, and you're just burning way too much money into a car that you have no idea how to build, you know? So that's so common that people do that. I think that's a lot when you're first starting out and say your friend is really into drifting and he's like, hey man, go buy that Sylvia shell, you know? We'll just put it together. We'll just slap it together. We'll go buy an SR and we'll just slap it in. Be easy, man. You'll only be like $2,000 in and you're done, you know? So common. Doesn't work out that way 99.9% of the time.
No.
There are people that can pull it off, and I kind of did when I was younger, when I was like 17, but parts were dirt cheap back then, you know? Like,
yeah, drifting hadn't exploded
but
back
at the same time, I never drifted that car once, apart from one time I put it into a gutter in an industrial estate, and that was the only time I ever drove it. I drove it 3 times in total, and I sold it for probably about half of what it owed me. So I ended up going straight into this bracket. It's just lucky that I ended up buying another car probably about a year and a half later. So
fun times.
I'm that guy. Like, I'm actually that guy, or at least I was.
Well, you were.
Yeah, but I managed to pull through somehow. Yeah.
You crawled all the way back.
Yeah, I did a full circle.
Yeah, I mean, like, and then you've got Exhibit D, as I've got here, you know. Yeah, your mate that sits in the garage building his car, you know, it's got this way over-engineered cage for what it is. You know, never gonna
Formula Drift spec cage.
FD spec, bro.
Oh, man.
Mate.
Yeah.
Mate, come on, it's Australia. You know, and they've gotten, like 2 years into the build, and they go, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And then they go, part out.
Yeah. But they'll sell this S13 or whatever.
S13 project.
S13 project car.
Your own wheels.
Built S13 project car just needs an engine and box and it's good to go. Yeah, that happens way too often. And it's usually just by the time the person 2-3 years in realize they've spent 10 grand on this shell that is way over budget, and they haven't done a single drift event in the last couple of years that they're building that car.
Yeah.
That's
a very relevant one.
Yeah, it's a super common one. People get caught into that trap, you know, of I think the big one that I see is everyone watches FD and they go, I'm going to cut my rear quarters off or my whole front end and tube front it. That's a big one these days, is these tube fronts and tube rears, like to a perfectly like straight car.
I find that really annoying actually, because you know, there's not an unlimited amount of these cars left.
Yep.
And if you crash with bash bars or you crash with a tube front, the Rio's not there.
No,
it's gonna ruin your car.
Yeah, then you got to re-tube front it. You know,
like
unless you know what you're doing. Like say you're building a car for Formula Drift and you're getting paid to do it because you know what you're doing.
Well, then it'd be your job.
Well, then it's your job, But they build into these things like crash zones and like crumple zones so that they can just replace that, and they don't only have to replace like these bolt-on parts.
Yeah.
But people don't understand that, and they don't like. I can't build an FD spec car. I'm not getting paid to build Formula Drift cars. So I have no idea how to do it. I can look at a couple of photos on Speedhunters and, look through there. But, like, it's just way, way too difficult to find something. To build a car from scratch like that, to that level, it's just
not worth it.
It's not worth it,
Especially if your goal is to build a car to drive, Yeah. It's...
Well, yeah.
You don't need a competition car to go out and have fun.
Nah, all you need, choppies, a weldy, and that's about it. And rear-wheel drive. I've been in front-wheel drive cars, so you don't even need that. But
my old car loved the choppies. It was sweet.
Yeah, choppies and a weldy. That is all you need. That's the thing that Luke Fink said in this old video, and he was in an S14 that just had choppies and a weldy, and he was driving better than anyone else at this event. This was like 10 years ago. But
when it first started.
Yeah, when people first started overbuilding cars, and 350 horsepower was like crazy power back then. But was it. Okay, next one is Colin's car drifts fine, but Facebook people tell him that the decent coilovers he uses are no good, so he upgrades them. Everyone else has more power, so he installs a massive turbo, and Wisefab is how to pull off backies, so he puts that in his car, and then he realizes he can't afford to even drift the next event, so he just can't even afford to drift the one after that, and it just snowballs and snowballs and snowballs.
Then trailers it to downshift.
Yeah, or sells up, because people they get stuck in this snowball effect of everyone's using this, and people are so turned off using Wisefab these days. Most people are just running cut and shots. This was done like 3 years ago when Wisefab was like at its peak. Everyone wanted Wisefab 3 years ago. Yeah. So but
everyone's realized, from the motherland of drifting, that cut and shots are still probably the most
but you don't even need a cut and shot.
No, but if you're looking for more lock, I've got cut and shots in the 34, and I was going to get cut and shots for the 8.6, but I ended up using power steering knuckles because they're shorter and better anyway. So the easiest way is to go and get just shorter knuckles, because they're easy enough to replace if you have an accident. Mm-hmm. And as long as you're getting them done properly, the risk of them breaking is super low.
Yeah.
Obviously go to someone that knows what they're doing.
You probably shouldn't run cut and shots on a street car.
I'll leave now.
I'm just saying you probably shouldn't.
You shouldn't. You shouldn't, but what you choose to do with your own car is...
Yeah.
You got to accept the consequences for it.
Yeah, totally. Just don't go blaming the people at Solar Cut and Shots that you crashed your car because one of the cut and shots broke. They'll just tell you, well, it was off-road use only. So
yeah.
Next one, ends for each track day, but you spend 90% of the day under the car, fixing the car, sorting issues before going home, having completed maybe one first lap at the end of the day, 4 o'clock. So yeah, I'm sure that a lot of people can really think of...
I'm sure we've all had at least one day like that, hey?
Yeah. Yeah, especially after you finish building a car. But yeah, it's just I think someone can think of anyone that they know for any of those examples. Like, I mean, I was one of the examples, So yeah.
I definitely just try to like sort most of your issues out before you get to the track.
Yeah,
like try and look over your car and.
It's just common sense with a lot of things.
Yeah,
though.
Don't ignore the issues that are there.
Yeah. Don't sort things out. If you do decide to build something, pick something, finish it, then move to the next thing. Don't get halfway through something on the car and change something else. But if you do want to build a car, you should be building it over time. You should be changing one thing at a time so you can really understand what makes a difference. Because even let's say the person who goes out and buys a built car, say they come up with there's a built car for like 10 grand, and they're like, wow, that's really cheap, and they go out and drive that, they're going to have no idea what they're doing stepping into from a basic car to a built car. Like, it's massive difference. There's no comparison.
No.
So, you should be doing everything in stages, chucking in camber arms in the back, then chucking in caster rods in the front, then maybe knuckles. Just boost up, maybe a turbo upgrade. Just do it in segments.
In stages, yeah.
Yeah.
Improve the car for yourself, like what you want. And don't listen to Facebook.
Don't listen to anyone on the internet. Don't listen to us. We're on the internet. So you should consider how much parts are going to cost you. I think this applies even more to like style parts as well. Like, say, a big wing or
aero kits, wheels.
Wheels are a big one. Interior stuff, it's nice to have style, but it definitely shouldn't impact on your driving time.
Like you should definitely have your drift car to a point where you're happy with it, that you're not wanting to, for example, go overboard with the motor if you wanted to or whatnot.
Yeah.
You want your car in a comfortable place where you're happy with it.
Yeah.
And then you go, all right, now's the time to make it start looking a little bit fancy, I guess.
Yeah, totally. But you've also got to, like, let's say this big wing, it costs the price of like $500. You're like, wow, that's 2 track days. Should I buy this wing or should I get 2 more drift days under my belt? Because basically, material possessions will not make you happy like an experience will. That's quote for quote from this article, and it is so true. It is so true. Like, it's another quote that I really love is, love people, not things, because the opposite doesn't work.
Yeah.
Love people, use things, because the opposite doesn't work. That's the one.
Yeah. And that's like, I can relate to that. Like, I've done, every single drift day I've gone to, even if we've had issues, we've been out there with friends and like, you're hyped afterwards. Like, you're there with your friends and you're having a good time and,
you can share drifting with other people.
Yeah. Your
wing is just for you, and that's all it's going to be, is just a wing, Whereas you can remember back, those drift days, those times, going to Matsuri or whatever, and they're awesome, But can you remember what wing you had on your car then? No. So, yeah. Ignore builds. Like, you really need to, this is another point, is you need to ignore what other people are doing. Doesn't matter what people are doing on the internet, like these crazy builds on Speedhunters and stuff like that, like, or any other forms. There's so much of that these days, which I think maybe wasn't as prevalent as it was when this article was being written, but it seems like everyone has a crazy build. And it's only getting more crazy. Like, I think about it, 10 years ago, 350 horsepower was crazy back then. That is minimal power nowadays. So
yeah, that's achievable with like a very basic setup here.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, that's the thing is, you know, people like even friends of mine that maybe are not so much into drifting as I am, but you know, they like cars. And they're very easily influenced by that kind of stuff. You know, they'll send me something on the internet and be like, oh, hey, man, you should build this and go like for this. And or, you know, get these wheels or get these over fenders or go, why don't you build this? You could make 500 horsepower with your motor. I'm like, yeah, but I also enjoy being able to afford to go drifting
and
every other week.
Live off ramen every day.
It's not a bad life. I like ramen.
No, it's not that bad.
I love ramen.
I pretty much just live off that anyway, whether I'm drifting or not.
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, people that complain they've got 500 kilowatt and they complain drifting is so expensive. Whoop, that was the keyboard. Yeah, and they complain that drifting is so expensive, and that's just totally wrong.
Yeah, it's like
it doesn't have to be expensive. And if you do have 500 real kilowatt and you're complaining about it being expensive, you shouldn't have 500 kilowatt.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. You have when you're buying things, you just have to actually take a step back. Don't get caught up in the marketing hype. Things are sold to us so much. We have stuff advertised to us so much. My housemate does marketing, and people should go and look up marketing, and it's super interesting, like how things get targeted towards you.
Yeah.
You really have to, and that's a big thing these days, you know, with how good marketing is. And just take a step back whenever you're contemplating buying something, and you really have to ask yourself, why do you want it? Do you want it because it's being advertised to you? Do you want it because you think it'll look good? Or do you want it because you need it? Or do you want it because you can just get it because you're just rich? So you really have to know why you want what you want. And most of the time, if you like sleep on it, you'll wake up the next day and not want it, you know? That's generally how you can tell, you know, if it's a need versus a want. Like if you write down something and go, I want to buy this in a week, you write that down and you look back a week later and you look at it and you go, no, I don't actually want that, you know. A week's not going to make a massive difference, and you can probably go drifting in that week rather than buying that part anyway.
Yeah, so, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, and people that say because race car.
I'm tired of that argument, eh?
I don't think that's as a common thing that people say these days, but it certainly was common back then.
Yeah, it was common at least like about 2 years ago.
Yeah, totally.
It's like, why do you do it? Oh, because race car. Like, no.
Yeah.
No, just you don't have a race car, you have a drift car. They're very different.
Totally. So, one big one is doing things right the first time still applies.
Oh, yeah, and totally. Even I've experienced that myself, you know, like, let's put an example like my 8.6.
Yep.
Like, that was my first drift car. It's what got me started, where I started, and, you know, like, I did things on that thing that I probably shouldn't have done, because it's made everything more expensive now.
Yeah.
And I still have issues with the electrics in that car. Yeah. Like, I've got a constant battery drain because of my very neat and tidy gauge wiring that's definitely earthed properly.
It's not neat and tidy, and it's not earthed properly.
You know, my engine loom that we slapped in because I thought my old engine loom was broken, which we had to hack up, which was out of 3 different other AE86s. And
this is exactly what I was talking about earlier.
Yeah, you know, like, I can
then
definitely...
you have your 34... that is a factory engine loom, and you never have a drama with that thing.
And that's the thing is like, yeah, I can leave that thing for like a week, go out and start it first go. Like, it's sat for, how long did it take me to reshell that into that new shell?
Oh, probably 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, it took me 3 months because, like, obviously I didn't have a car and
I wasn't here to help.
Trav wasn't here, and it was in like another
But man,
area.
we'll just reshell it on a Sunday.
In fairness, if you look over the time that it took us to do it, it really only took us 3 days. But
Sure it did.
Yeah, it did.
But yeah, doing it first time right.
First time right is definitely something you should seriously put some effort and thought into, because I'm going through the 8.6 now and like it's costing me money because I want to make it a nice car, because after it got crashed into, I've spent all this money making it straight. So I want the rest of it to look as good as the outside of it now. So,
well, I think that goes with like not paying, with again, like writing down what part you want and waiting a week. That gives you another week to research other brands and other options instead of buying that, which is so important, because you don't want to buy a product that's crap, but don't always go off reviews, especially on YouTube. So many of those guys are paid to say what they say. So there's a really popular one about like GK Tech versus other like ISR and other brands like that. And a lot of the points were valid, but it was so biased. And you have to be very careful about things being biased. But you should be smart enough to understand what you're buying, and you can look at that review, not go off what that person is exactly saying, but take what they are saying as a grain of salt and make your own judgment.
Yeah, exactly.
And you got to look at the price and compare that to how long the part's going to last, availability, and whether you actually need it, or can you get away with something else? Can you make it? That's another big one. So if you make something, especially small, just do that. Don't buy it. You don't have to waste money on stuff that you can make just because it looks pretty. Don't do engine swaps. That's another point, but we've pretty much already gone through that. Buying the car that already comes with, you don't have to swap an LS1 into whatever you want, as cool as they are.
They are not.
I love LSs. LS the world.
No. Nope.
But
definitely not.
But you don't have to do it.
No.
It's not a necessity. But in Australia, like me and my friend Hayden, we're going to put an LS in his S14. But that's because his SR20 blew up, and we're looking at the prices of SRs in Australia, and they're like $3,000. We can get a whole LS conversion for around that price, but when we blow up an LS, it's only $1,000. But I have significant knowledge in building cars. He doesn't. If it was up to him, he would be very stuck. He's just lucky that he has me and one of my other mates who are very competent, qualified mechanics and auto electricians that can actually build this to a spec that it is going to be reliable. So build within your means and whatever's going to be cheapest, because SRs are getting quite expensive. They're not the go-to motor anymore.
No,
so,
unfortunately,
but everything's getting expensive. So, we've already been through that. People that say that strut brace made a massive difference. Placebo is a wonderful thing. Yes. A wonderful thing. So, don't believe everything that is making a massive difference, 'cause it's probably not.
No.
It's probably not. I couldn't even tell when I removed the sway bar in my car versus leaving it in. Unless your car is so dialed and so grippy, so many things will not even make a difference at all, apart from in your mind. If you think it's going to make a difference, it's probably going to make a difference. But if you don't think it's going to make a difference, it's probably not going to make a difference. So, yeah. And you're probably not going to notice any major power upgrades until you do probably at least a 50 horsepower upgrade, to get like a solid difference feeling to it, like where it actually makes like a difference with the car.
Yeah.
So, and that's a solid upgrade. Like that's a different turbo generally to get that kind of upgrade.
Yeah, or a high flow standard with an ECU.
That's still a different turbo, like than a factory one. You're not going to get that without that. So, but you don't need it as well. So, let's say super common on a 1J VVTi to blow a factory turbo, $200 to buy another second-hand one, or it's like $1,500 to buy, say, a Tomei one, or it's going to cost you like $8,000 to do a full legit turbo kit. Which one gets you back on the road quicker doing drifting? The $200 one. Is it probably going to blow in the next 6 months? Probably. Will the Tomei one blow and it's only going to cost you $1,500? No. Or a high flow one if you don't want to go Tomei, because I know some people don't like them. Go that. Don't go the $8,000 kit. You don't need it. you know, don't need it. That's a super common one. I think a lot of people are moving towards 1Js these days, especially the VVTi motors, because they're getting a bit cheaper.
Yeah, they're nice motors.
They're nice motors. I had one in my J6100. Get dyno health checks. You know, even if you did it every year, usually it costs about $100 to put it in a car and do some runs on it. They can check the AFRs, especially E85. My car is so overdue for it. Because with E85, you can rust up your injectors and your fuel pump, and you won't even know that your motor's leaning out. But it's a big one with E85 these days. Is to get dyno health checks. Can totally save your engine. As well, if you're trying to find a problem with the motor, and say it will have like a random cutout issue at like 4,000 RPM, take it and put it on a dyno. They can check every sensor. And if they can't figure it out, go somewhere else, because that means they're useless. But every proper, legitimate dyno guy should totally be able to figure out an engine within 2 or 3 runs, you know, just by looking at the data. So as long as you can log in, but generally with most motors, they're going to run like an OBD or a factory option diagnostic tool.
90% of the cars that are common for drifting are going to have the outputs to do that.
You know, consult cable for Nissan, Toyota diagnostics for Toyota. It's all there. You know, people can figure this out. Don't go, oh, someone on the internet said it's the coil packs, so I'm going to go out and spend $800 on brand new aftermarket coil packs. And then it doesn't sort the issue. So dumb. Don't do it. Take it to someone. If you're not sure, if you cannot prove that is what is wrong yourself, because you're not a qualified mechanic or not skilled enough, take it to someone who is. Let them do it properly. It'll cost you so much less in the long run.
Yeah,
and they'll
exactly.
probably find other issues while you're there. So, a setup. Make sure you keep your car cool.
Yeah. Just keep it basic as well. Yeah, like bigger radiator. I find aftermarket temp gauges are a big thing for me, because I had one motor blow up because of my standard temp gauge, and I had one almost blow up because of it, and then I went and put water temp and oil pressure in my cars just because.
And get into the habit of checking them all the time at the track, like every lap. You know, when you're sitting in that lineup, check your temps.
It's always good to get one with a memory on it as well, so you can, you know, if you've got a turbo car, you can check if you're overboosting. Because mid-run you don't see these things, and if your gauge doesn't actually flash red at you, you're not going to notice.
No, that's it. Totally.
And I mean, if your car's loud,
don't ignore them either and go, "Oh, just do one more." That's usually when you'll blow your motor. Doing cooldown laps as well. That's a really big one. Even if your car is not overheating, your tires overheat. If you want to get more life out of your tires, heat cycle them. Doing a cool down lap or two for your tires will probably make them last 2 to 3 times as long.
Yeah, definitely.
And it keeps the grip level the same. Lots of tires, their grip level will fade away as the tire wears down. So you want to keep things consistent, you know. Cool down laps are so important. So important.
Yeah.
And it gives you a chance to relax and reflect on how you were just doing, and to think of like what else you can change.
Yeah, you can think about your run and like where you could change something and all that.
Yep.
But it all comes down to, I guess, how you treat your car and like mechanical sympathy, you know? You don't need to
Mechanical sympathy is a big one. Yep.
Yeah, because like you see a lot of people abusing...
Sit on limiter?
Yes.
Limiter battery, mate.
Yes, you know, like, I mean...
It's cool for, like, everyone else there to hit your car limiter bash and forth as you go around turn 6 at QR. Everyone's frothing it, but your motor's not frothing it. So it's probably frothing out that cap where it's got a blown head gasket.
So, well, you know, your oil pump's just shattered.
Oh, yeah, SRB life.
I'm scared. Very scared.
And don't limiter bash SRs, but I'm sure you already know that. Most people that start drifting or even are in drifting don't do other forms of motorsport.
No.
So
I mean, I'd love to, but I can't say that I do.
I've never been to a circuit day. I'd love to, but I've never been to one.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is to realize that is most other forms of motorsport, you don't get much track time compared to drifting. Drifting, you get a solid amount of track time, but then your car has to be prepared to run for that long as well. So just understand that, it's not a drag car. It doesn't have to run for 10 seconds or less. Don't go crazy on your tow car. I already mentioned that before. If your dad has a Falcon or, a basic pickup truck or ute, use that. If it can, as long as it's, read the manual and read the tow bar to make sure it's able to tow.
As long as it's rated to tow and all that.
It's good enough, You don't have to go out and buy some crazy like van setup or truck setup or ute setup even, just to tow your car. But your tow car does have to be probably more reliable than your drift car.
Preferably.
So, keep up the maintenance on your tow car too, please.
Yeah, and like, you don't even need to go out and buy a hectic trailer at all.
You don't have to buy a trailer. You can rent a trailer.
Rent one, I've done that plenty of times, and
it's the biggest waste of space at a house, I think, a trailer.
Unless you're constantly using it, yes.
Which hopefully people, after they listen to this and they go through and actually read this on Drift Life Australia.
Yeah, please do. It's a very good read.
It's like, and we're like skimming over this, just pointing out like the relevant points, but this article totally hits home, and it hit home with me 3 years ago, and it's probably why my car is so is at the level that it's at now. It's a basic car. Like my 180SX, it probably does owe me $3,000 to $4,000, and that's enough to build that car for what it is, but it's only cut and shut knuckles, an RB20, doesn't even have a cage. It's just got a shimmed LSD, coilovers, and that's about it. But that's all I need, and I'm trying to throw down, that car's still probably at a level above where I'm at. I can't outdrive that car. No. So, and same as my car in Japan. My R32 is basically stock with boost up and coilovers, and I'm only just... It doesn't even have knuckles, and I'm only just starting to outdrive that car, but I'm not at the point of outdriving that car at all. Like, I can still throw down with that car for probably the next year or two at Matsuri. So just remember that. The other one is don't go out and buy a heap of tools, and even going to the track, even if you have heaps of tools already, say you are a mechanic, don't bring every tool. I fall into that trap every time. Like, I'll go out there and I'll bring welder, I'll bring my whole toolbox, and I never use it, I have other people coming up and asking me to use it, and tell them no, but unless I like them. But
yeah, just a nice basic set.
A basic set that you can even leave in the car full time. Like, you don't want to be pulling, because more than likely you'll forget the tools that you actually need. Whereas if you have a basic set in your car, and if you're going with friends, you can say, I'll bring this. Like, I'll bring the welder, but you bring that, you don't have to all bring the same stuff.
No.
So, like, me and my mates, we usually bring like 1 or 2 jacks between 4 of us. So,
yeah, and that's the thing is, like, me and my mates, we bring maybe 2 jacks, and we've got a communal toolbox that we all just pitched money in for.
Yep.
And it's tools that
drifting
weren't super expensive. We just got middle of the road, just in case, because sometimes there are those not great people at drift events, and will take your stuff. So we put easily replaceable tools in that we take to the track, and we keep all the good stuff at home for where we do most of the maintenance and repairs.
Yeah.
So, don't go overboard with bringing tools.
And don't overthink it,
Yeah. Like, if you bring in the toolbox there and you're expecting to break your car that badly,
that's it.
You're not going to be fixing it at the track.
Up to the track going, I'm not even going to need any tools because my car's reliable enough. And I hope that it is. That's how it should be. That's the end goal.
Yeah, definitely.
That's end goal, Like, you want to be bringing less tools and making your car more reliable. So spend less on tools, spend more on making your car reliable. You're not even going to need the tools.
Yeah.
So, I think, like, as like a closing thing, it really opened my eyes when I went to Japan and just saw on my first trip, and really drove and saw how many people are driving such underpowered cars and are just driving at so much higher level than 90% of people, or even higher than of people in Australia, you know, and America. Like, and they just have the most basic setup cars, and they're still out driving. You know, tracks are a slightly different layout to Australia. They're a lot tighter generally, but even still, there's tight tracks here and there's tight tracks in America, and people in Japan are still out driving that, and you only have to watch Naoki at Super D to figure that out. So, but even people other than Naoki, like just normal people are driving better than most people.
Yeah, just go and find some of those YouTube channels that post up videos from Mayhan.
Yeah,
you know, and you'll see just like the average
even just
dude
watch a live
down.
of just what you can watch, like Ebisu Matsuri
the live streams.
Live stream, yeah. You know, like crazy drivers over there. You know, and they're in the most basic cars. And honestly, like my 32 feels like it has like 350 horsepower when I'm over there. I hop in that and hop on North Course. I'm like, man, this thing's fast. Like this is fast. And it's a stock 20. Like it's nothing. It's slow, you know. You know, go back to Australia. I don't know if it's the air they breathe over there, but man, like that thing feels fast. But it's just how you drive. You know, you I think that's the thing. Whenever like Naoki or Daigo hop out on track, you know, like those big name guys hop out on track at Matsuri, and they do come, it's pushes everyone to drive that 120%, you know, like,
yeah.
But you know, they have that aura about them when you're driving out there. But they're the kinds of people that you want to be driving with. You don't want to be driving with people that are, you know, coming in slow into the corner, knocking it into fourth and giving it a boot full and drifting only from mid corner to corner exit, but still going through a pair of tires a lap. Like, you want to be driving with people that aren't afraid to bash up their cars, you know, like not on purpose. I hate people that do it on purpose just to hit a wall for the sake of hitting a wall. That's crap. But if you were really pushing hard and throwing down in close tandem, if you dent up your car doing that with your mates, there is no better feeling. There literally is no better feeling than that, you know. And hopefully you'll learn how to not dent up your car when you come back home. So, yeah, you know, make your car your own. Doesn't matter, you know, if you go on a fancy paint job and nice wheels and big body kit and stuff like that. But just don't let that sacrifice your driving time. That's what we're here for. We're not all stance kids. If you want to go do that, go be a stance kid, you know? Like, that's not what it's about. Drifting is about driving.
Yeah, drifting is totally just about driving and having fun.
Yeah.
You know, like...
I think if you do want to go out and build a crazy car, you should still have your simple car. You shouldn't build your simple car.
No.
You have to have a second car. Yeah. And you have to set aside, you know, you should budget it out so that in your weekly pay, let's say you want to do one event a month, which is only 12 events a year. Say you want to do that, you have to leave enough budget in your pay that goes into a separate account that allows you to do one event a month to keep you, because you forget how to drive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So if you can sustainably build a car and still drive one event a month, that's totally cool to build a car, but you'll probably get halfway through building that car or even a quarter way through building that car and be like, I just like driving, you know, like, yeah. So yeah, that's the way to do it. Write down what you want. If you actually still want it after looking at it for a week and researching it and not getting fed a whole heap of stuff from advertisers, then go ahead and buy it if you think you need it, you know, or you desperately want that thing still. But other than that, don't buy it. Have you got any closing things?
No, just have fun.
Yeah, keep it fun.
Keep it fun. Don't overbuild your car.
Building a car by yourself.
No,
that's not fun.
It's not even fun doing maintenance on your car. But you know,
no.
Why would you want to ever go through the hassle of building it?
Yeah, you know, just
keep it simple and have fun.
And
that's
weigh up the cost of, you know, like to go over and do a trip to Ebisu would probably cost you like 10k plus the car. So, you know, and the cars are anywhere from above $6,000 up. And if it's going to cost you 20k to build a car, that's 1.5 to 2 Ebisu trips. Like, you're not going to get any more driving than that. And you'll come back a way better driver in the most basic of car and you'll get back and you'll be like, I don't want a high power car, I just want to go bang doors.
Yeah.
Just do that. Weigh up your costs. I just judge everything on how much it's going to cost to me to do versus a week in Ebisu. So that's how I value things these days. So you should do the same. Sure. All right, guys.
Thanks for listening. And leave your comments in Instagram and Facebook. I'm really interested to hear what you guys think about that. And you can listen to us on YouTube, Podcast Addict, iTunes, I think it's Castbox as well. And just anywhere you can listen to podcasts. And we'll catch you in about 2 weeks. And if you've got any drift news from your country, I'm keen as to hear it. I want to hear about, drifting in Thailand. I know it's big over there and all through Europe, wherever. Tell me about drifting events in China. You know? We'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, and USA. We need some boys from the USA to give us a call because we don't have a whole heap of friends over there, but drifting's massive. Give us a call. I'm keen to hear it. I know some of you guys from the USA are watching. I've looked at the analytics, so yeah, give us a call.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for that.
Have a good one.